The Suicide Squad is the first DC film from James Gunn, and it's overflowing with darkly disturbed heroes, visually stunning sequences, and sizzling dialogue. Here's some lines in The Suicide Squad that mean more than you might have realized the first time you heard them. When Amanda Waller introduces Robert Dubois, aka Bloodsport, these are the bona fides that she chooses to highlight on his resume.
He's in prison for putting Superman in the ICU with a kryptonite bullet.
This line has three purposes. First and foremost, it establishes that although Dubois doesn't have any superpowers, he possesses a skill set formidable enough to take down anyone, even arguably the most powerful hero in all of comicdom. Secondly, it tells us that this threat is rooted in not only stellar marksmanship, but also his high-tech suit and weaponry that manifests itself, ensuring that he always has the right weapon for any given situation. The third purpose is to establish the stakes for the film's biggest showdown. Near the end of the film, as Jotunheim is collapsing and Peacemaker is moments away from executing Ratcatcher 2, Dubois comically surfs from floor to floor, each collapsing beneath him as he tries to stay steady, depositing him right into the confrontation. Realizing the situation, Peacemaker turns his gun on Bloodsport, and if you don't immediately know who's going to win that shootout, you weren't listening very closely to Waller's introduction.
Each member is chosen for his or her own completely unique set of abilities.
Another line from Waller, and this time the director of Argus seems to be tipping off not only her own status as Puppet Master, but also a game plan that stacks the deck against the majority of Task Force X. Most literally, the line foreshadows a comical, bloody opening that kills off several characters. Why would Waller choose Blackguard, Captain Boomerang, TDK, Javelin, Mongol, and Savant to storm a beach filled with armed-to-the-teeth soldiers? None of these chosen fighters are bulletproof or have powers that could unarm the soldiers with a wave of a hand. They are little more than baits on a hook, selected to make a whole bunch of noise and not much else. It's also very hard to believe that someone as thorough as Waller would select Weasel and not know perfectly well that he couldn't swim. It's just a distraction, of course, which is interesting, not only because Waller clearly wanted Bloodsport, Peacemaker, King Shark, Ratcatcher 2, and Polka Dot Man to be her A-team, but also because by placing Colonel Rick Flag and Harley Quinn on her B-team, was she hoping for them to also be mowed down in a hail of gunfire upon reaching the shores of Corto Maltese? Waller is surprised to learn that Flag survived the slaughter and doesn't seem to have plans for Harley Quinn beyond the beach either. So in essence, that line is Waller saying everybody whose unique set of abilities we need will be on the A-team. Everybody chosen for useless powers that will distract the enemy are on the B-team, and they'll make a big ruckus before they die. Now, if you were to ask Harley Quinn after the events of the movie, she'd tell you that Javelin did serve a purpose, and that purpose was to give her the weapon she would eventually need to stop Starro and save the day.
We're all gonna die.
I hope so.
This early moment from Abner Krill, whose page-bound predecessor James Gunn endearingly describes as the dumbest DC character of all time, reminds us of what Gunn does better than any modern filmmaker. Take an idea that sounds terrible and delicately transform it into something audiences will love. By the end of the film, Polka Dot Man will likely be your favorite Suicide Squad member. Also by the end of the film, he will have come a long way from the self-loathing Debbie Downer wishing death upon himself and his squad mates. Krill has more issues than Sports Illustrated, to be sure, chief among them a deep hatred for the mother he envisions as every enemy he hopes to obliterate. But as the film goes on, he finds true joy through the mission and the camaraderie therein. This particularly feels true with Polka Dot Man's moment on the dance floor just before the team captures the Thinker, when he seems to let his hair down for the first time. Another factor of growth seems to be a genuine friendship with Ratcatcher 2, who's also the most bothered by his eventual fate. When all is said and done, Polka Dot Man is as into his job as any of us in the audience who hope to live vicariously through these characters.
I'm a superhero! Starfish is a slang term for a butthole. Think there's any connection?
No.
Yeah, it's a funny line, yeah, it's very James Gunn, and yeah, it got a big laugh in the trailer, but it's also a totally fake moment. As we learn later in the film, Peacemaker was the only member of the Suicide Squad who got the real briefing on this mission. With that knowledge, how can this exchange be seen as anything other than a duplicitous attempt to establish Peacemaker as too lunkheaded to have an ulterior motive? He already knows he's really going to Corto Maltese to destroy files linking the US to Jotunheim and kill any of his teammates who get in the way. He also likely knows that Project Starfish refers to a giant space starfish that has been experimented on there for decades. Of course, this also means Waller is faking her frustration with his question. She knows quite well that Peacemaker's overzealous note-taking is a facade, one quite likely devised by her. In reality, James Gunn told Cena on the set to play the character like a broed-up version of Captain America. By the end of the film, it's clear that Peacemaker isn't this stupid, and also that he's arguably the most villainous of all these villains. In the DC Extended Universe, there's no such thing as COVID-19. Lucky them. All they have to fear are brain-sucking starfish, child-murdering weasels, and walking sharks that might mistake them for a num-num. As all of us are well too aware, The Suicide Squad is among the many blockbuster films impacted by the worldwide pandemic that put much of pop culture on hold, for good reason, beginning in 2020. Much of the film was edited at the writer-director's home in the latter half of 2020, as coronavirus forced many people to work remotely. Of course, James Gunn knows all this, and in his own sly way, he wants to acknowledge the elephant in the room. So on the verge of the climactic battle in Jotunheim, when the squad briefs the Thinker on the rules of engagement, Harley Quinn plays comic relief, telling the mad scientist which actions will get him killed.
If you cough without covering your mouth...
Harley, although that isn't an open invitation for you to cough without covering your mouth.
So if you plan to see The Suicide Squad in theaters, take it from Harley Quinn and Colonel Flag and be mindful of germ spreading. Wash your hands, wear your mask where applicable, and try not to cough while Task Force X are explaining the rules. Because we all know now what happens to the Thinker, and you definitely do not want to end up like that guy. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about the Suicide Squad are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.